Despite his busy schedule during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln often visited the hospitals to cheer the wounded. On one occasion, he saw a young fellow who was near death. "Is there anything I can do for you?" asked the compassionate president. "Please write a letter to my mother," came the reply. Unrecognized by the soldier, the chief executive sat down and wrote as the youth told him what to say. The letter read, "My dearest mother, I was badly hurt while doing my duty, and I won't recover. Don't sorrow too much for me. May God bless you, and Father, kiss Mary and John for me." The young man was too weak to go on, so Lincoln signed the letter for him and then added this postscript: "Written for your son by Abraham Lincoln." Asking to see the note, the soldier was astonished to discover who had shown him such kindness. "Are you really our president?" he asked. "Yes," was the quiet answer. "Now, is there anything else I can do?" The lad feebly replied, "Will you please hold my hand? I think it would help to see me through to the end." The tall, gaunt man granted his request, offering warm words of encouragement until death stole in with him in the dawn. It's a compassionate story. The story of every believer's life is a story of grace. Whether we fully comprehend it or not, God has been gracious to us all, hasn't He? He lovingly takes us by our hand, leads us through this life, doesn't He? God is never too busy for us, and He will always take time to listen to us. Grace is favor bestowed on someone who doesn't deserve it and can earn it. And I think that speaks to all of us, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Absolutely. In our lesson today, we read about how Ruth received grace from Boaz. We also see how she responded to her experience of grace. We read in Ruth chapter 2, beginning in verse 5, Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, "Whose young woman is that?" The foreman replied, "She is the Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the girls. I have told the men not to touch you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." At this she bowed down with her face to the ground. She exclaimed, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord," she said. "You have given me comfort and have spoken kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servant girls." In verse 1 of chapter 2, we are introduced to the man by the name of Boaz. There we learn that Boaz is related to Naomi through her husband. We also learn that Boaz is a man of standing. He is a man of great wealth. He has a good reputation. He is an honorable man, respected throughout his community or society. He is a man of strength, power, ability, capability, and wealth. He's got all of it, right? He's the full package. In verse 2, we read that Ruth makes a request to Naomi by saying, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favor." Again, Ruth's intentions were to find someone who would show her kindness and grace, right? That's what her intention was. Ruth gains permission from Naomi to go into the field. Naomi tells her to go ahead, and Ruth went out and began to glean behind the harvesters, with some harvesters out in the field. And we are told, as it just turned out, she ended up in the field of Boaz. Amazing coincidence, right? Well, in verse 4 we read, "Just then, all of a sudden, Boaz arrived on the scene from Bethlehem." Boaz then greets his workers and blesses them, and they bless him in return. Just after Boaz greeted his workers, his eye happens to catch the presence of an unknown person in his congregation or in his field, right? And he asks, "Whose woman is that?" Yeah, whose woman is that? Again, Boaz's desire is to know all the workers that are working in his field. I think of our congregation. It's nice to know everybody when they come in, even the newcomers whenever they come in. We like to get to know them, right? And I think Boaz was the same way. He wanted to know who this new person was now in his field working the harvest. It appears that Boaz recognized everyone else in the field except for the newcomer. And to him, she probably stuck out like a sore thumb, right? You know, I mean, when somebody new comes in the crowd, you can't help but notice them most of the time, right? She was not lost in the crowd, and this reminds us that God sees each and every one of us today, doesn't it? We are not lost in any crowd. He sees us as individuals. He knows us intimately. He takes notice of us no matter what we're doing, even amongst the crowd. The former replies, saying she is a Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi. He further tells Boaz how she requested permission to glean in the field and how she had continued to work except for a short period of time. Right? The foreman further told Ruth's courteous request for permission to glean after the reapers and had completed their work. Ruth doesn't demand a handout, nor does she presume upon her the right to glean. She's courteous. She asks. All Ruth was asking was to gather the leftovers behind the reapers, and she asked permission to do that. Ruth was a woman of excellent character. The foreman's comments about Ruth reveal much about her character. From his comments, we find a young woman under difficult circumstances, exhibiting traits of kindness, compassion, tact, diligence, humility, and modesty. I don't know about you, but whenever you get in a tough situation, do you act like that? Most of us don't, right? Even though Ruth finds herself in a difficult situation, she displays the outstanding qualities of her character and nature. She does not let her circumstances change her demeanor at all. She is kind and gracious, and the foreman recognizes these qualities in Ruth. He couldn't help but notice it.